now. Hi, Tikva. In Kuf Daled, how I see it is a series in terms of, you have to go to the Gemara first, to Samach Chet Amid Bet, and take us to Samach Tet Amid Aleph. And I have to ask one question. Isaac, are you there? Isaac Howley?
I am, yeah.
You are. So how many votes are you dumping into Georgia tomorrow?
0, because I don't cheat on elections.
Okay, that is the right answer. Okay, great. Great, okay. Interesting country that many of you guys live in. Fine. Okay, so it could be this is a good title for tonight, is basically dealing with the whole concept of meuse. We're going to be dealing with, we're going to the Gemara, dealing with a statement of Rav that needs much working through, and it gets some working through. And that's how I want to take it. In order for us to come to a definition of how does meuse, how can meuse, when an object is meuse, and at the same time, tame, how does that meuse affect its tame being? So let's look at Samach Chet Amid Bet. Let's go to the statement, and let's go to what I see as a series of conversations which doesn't really answer the whole thing, but gives us criteria. What would be a good term? What's a Lumdische term for criteria? I just use the word criteria. If I wanted to say it in a Lumdische way, what would it be?
Chiluk.
Excuse me?
Chiluk.
Yeah, that's actually what I would say. Chilukim, which also could be translated as chiluk, as distinctions, but I guess distinctions which end up being a criterion, or maybe criteria that end up, we use the term chilukim. I think that's a good way of talking about it. Okay, so I'm going to read to begin with. And we have a statement in the Gemara. Ahu achbara. Do you have that smack dab in the middle of the page of the classic Talmud page? Ahu achbara. Denafal lechavita de shichra. Asrei Rav lahu shichra. A rat falls into a barrel of alcohol. Rav forbade that alcohol, that barrel. Maybe we should start what will be our questions as opposed to right now what will be the chilukim. So the first question would be, just going through the words, will be, we don't know that question yet, but there'll be a question of what rat, what kind of rat? Chavita de shichra, dafka chavita de shichra, anything else? Or is it only chavita de shichra? Asrei Rav, why was he aseret? Lahu shichra, to that shichra, and again, is there any other shichra? Rav, I'm going to define this as conversations. It starts with a statement. Rav is a what? He's an Amora from Bavel. Which generation?
One.
Somebody said one, another person put up 2 fingers. Said 2. Joel, why do you say 2?
It depends how you count it, I think, right?
Yeah, there's a whole thing about how you count.
Yeah.
So since I have in front of me the Steinsaltz book, I usually count from that. But he's really there up on top. He's a major right? Major guy. So I'm going to refer to him as the first generation. The years for Steinsaltz's counting of first generation is 220 to 250. And that's his statement. So then we get to a conversation about that statement. You guys are kind of, I'm reading, therefore you guys are in the sense of the teachers. So you gotta make sure I'm doing it right or things to be added. Amrua Rabbanan Kamed de Rav Sheshet. Now, when was Rav Sheshet? What's his generation?
Four?
Excuse me?
4?
Well, we're going to have this all the way through. I'm going to put him at third because I'm moving everyone up because I moved, since I moved Rav up, and Rav Sheshet is third generation. I wrote it down, 290 to 320 CE. Okay. Amrua Rabbanan Kamed the Rav Sheshet. So they stated, the Rabbanan stated this in front of Rav Sheshet, and they said, right? So we're talking a sense, we've skipped a generation, we're that next generation, no matter what it is. Nema, just looking at that statement, should we say, Kosavar, that Rav holds, putting the word Rav, noting tam lifgam asur. So the achbar falls into the barrel of alcohol. A rat should be noting tam lifgam, and therefore the shechar is osir. Maybe we would say osir here. And is that really Rav's opinion? Not, I don't think they're discounting that opinion, right? They're just saying that seemingly is the simplest way of reading a sentence, reading a quotation, an oral quotation that they have. The easiest way to say is an issue of noting tam lifgam, and therefore it's osir. Anybody want to disagree? Anybody got something else? What do you got, Les? What do you got?
I feel like it's like bitmia. Like I feel like the way I read it was at that point there already seemed to be like relative consensus that like we don't really get for the most part other places like the Rabbanan like significantly before this are like yes notin tam lifgam mutar, and like I read it as like kasavar like Rav notin tam lifgam asur, like that's not a normative opinion, which we see they're like yeah like later in the sugya like
Well,
right?
I haven't gotten to.
I know you don't have to like put that in fully.
But I get your point. No, I get your point. But I would just say this to you: the simplest way of showing tema is not to say tema because they don't say tema. Is just say, oh, this means this. Let the Rebbe say tema. In other words, yeah, I'm just saying a nuance in
I'm saying
reading.
like bitnia, like as in like in a like really kind of way.
No, I got you. By saying the simplest way is just to say it simply. In other words, simply. Take it or leave it. But I often find that to be helpful because what they're saying is the simplest shot seems to be that. So should we say that? And that's it becomes a provocative statement. So I'm not in disagreement, but that's how I do it. Amar lohu Rav Sheshet. Okay. Rav Sheshet responds, Ba'alma, actually, or in the world, or generally, what would you rather say? Generally or actually? Josh, generally or actually? Ba'alma.
Actually.
Okay. Anybody want to say generally?
Can I say for sure?
For sure. All right. I'm from Southern California.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Okay. Rav Sheshet says, Ba'alma,
Just.
actually just in the world. Savarav noting tam lifgam mutar. Just go through the activity with you. Since it's noting tam lifgam, and we have a pagam. The pagam is the taste of the achbar. Is that it? We say noten tam with gam. Someone work that out for me. Whose tam to what pagam?
The achbar is pogam to the sheikhar.
And what time are you offering?
Is that a play on words?
No, I meant it. No, not that advanced. Not that advanced. I meant it of what kind of taste. Now give me the time. Now give me the time. What?
It's forbidden taste because achbar is a sheretz.
Mm-hmm. So how do you translate noten tam lifkam?
It gives a taste that is detrimental.
Okay, detrimental.
Or
So it's a pogam taste.
for detriment would probably be
For detriment,
the
nothing
moral
tam
translation.
with tam. So fine. So he gives a tam for the pagam, and therefore it renders what mutar, the sheikhar mutar, because
it takes away from the flavor. Like it makes it nastier, so that's tough.
fine. So you know, with taking that go back to Noam with what you said, is everything which is tameh, is everything which is tameh noten tam lifkam?
No, absolutely not.
So what? So why is this?
It's because it's a sheretz. It's because it's a sheretz.
Oh, now you're telling me about sheretz, but you didn't say sheretz earlier, did you?
Oh, I thought I did. I might have misspoke then. Yes.
No. So now say it again. Sorry for this slow thing. Okay,
because
guys.
Because the achbar is a sheretz, it's got a isur achila on it. So when its rancid flavor interacts or makes the sheikhar's flavor also rancid, we say the tam is pagum. So we sort of discount the asur nature of the achbar.
Oh, it obliterates. I don't want to say the word beetle, but obliterates or it overwhelms the tam. I'm sorry. The isur is overwhelmed. Would that be the time by the tam of the achbar? It's very simple. Not the tam with kan, but then I started thinking. I want to know how do you say it?
Trumps it.
Because Asher's saying gross. Okay, it's gross.
No, I said it trumps it. It trumps the flavor. It trumps the one law trumps the other. Right? That's what you're saying?
Very good word for puns today. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. Are we okay? Is this okay? Anybody have something to say in this? Savar Rav noten tam lifgam is mutar. Or did I just leave this into a strange place? Why is it mutar? What's mutar? I mean, looking for every word now. What's mutar? Lexi, what's mutar?
Permitted.
I thank you. And what is permitted?
The shichra.
The shichra. Okay.
Or like anything that is like pagum.
I don't know about that. I do that. So noten tam lifgam mutar.
You can tell they've got mutar saying that like in a case where like an isser gives a negative, like the simplest way of parsing it is like a thing that gives a negative flavor, presumably the thing that it has given negative flavor to is mutar.
Okay. Anybody want to comment on that? Sounds okay to me, but anybody want to comment on that? Okay. So you say Rav Shesha says Ba'amah Sava Rav noten tam lifgam mutar, that actually in this case, or in general cases or in parallel cases, he would say the thing coming into the Shechra would produce an effect of heter, because it eliminates, it somehow modifies, protects, defends, overwhelms the Isur. So therefore,
Or they're just never. Or they're just,
therefore, Rav's statement
Or it just
is,
isn't.
is perplexing to us, because in his general hanhaga or psak, he would say this would be a heter case because we don't worry about the Isur anymore. The Isur has been, I don't want to say nullified because it sounds like beetle, but has been overwhelmed.
Rav Landes?
Yeah.
Just two thoughts, and then I'll let people, attack them as they will. But one is, I don't know that sheretz is important at this point, right? I think just an achbar in your shechar is just disgusting, right? Like, not because it's a sheretz, it's just like, who wants some mouse in there or whatever, vermin in their beer?
You
Okay.
hate, okay, so good. So thank you. So therefore, according to that, what we should be saying is the non-aesthetic, anti-aesthetic, the meuse, it's the meuse-kite. The meuse-kiteness.
Like the non-kosher gross animal.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it's not kosher, I mean, it's not kosher because it's a sheretz. It's not kosher because it's,
Yeah, just like she said.
Yeah. But I think the sheretz is going to come into the fact that the meuse part is going to be where the sheretz factor is important more than it is at this point, right?
Well, more about
It's
the
about
Well,
to
right
be
now it
relevant.
says achbar, and you're telling me achbar is a sheretz, and that's fine. But that's that's also a classification. So right now, they're being careful by not saying sheretz, they're just saying achbar. And they don't even say the word. I'm trying to do as minimal as possible. And they're saying achbar, but we know achbar
Yeah,
is,
but it's also like,
is aesthetically terrible. It's
yeah,
meuse.
and it's also like a likely thing, it's an achbar not because it's a sheretz, but because what's likely to fall in your beer and be disgusting, mice are all over the place and they fall into things. At least I think they do. I don't know. I don't tend to have mice in my.
I was waiting for that. Okay, fine. Okay. So good. So up to now, at that point of the word mutar, okay, we would say that should be the psak here regarding achbar, right? It's something which is noting tam lifgam. It's pogum. Now you could say sheretz, right? It's pogame, but it gives a tam. Oh, it's a tam of pagimo. I'm still going back to what Noam, what you said earlier, or did Noam leave? And this is a yucky conversation. When he comes back, I'll ask him. Okay, so can someone help me now, just with this sentence? Amar lahu Rav Sheshes ba'alma, actually, probably, generally, Savar Rav note tam lifgam mutar. In this case here is a notain, seemingly is a notain tam lifgam. It ruins the taste of the, someone to give me a sentence.
Beer.
Yeah, give me a sentence. Translate for me.
Sorry, translate what?
I'm desperate. Noting Savar Rav, noting tam lifgam mutar.
It's saying, like, the first there was the proposal that he says this because he reasons that notetam nifgam is asur, and then they say no. He says notetam nifgam is in general mutar, and now we're about to explain why this case.
And before we go any further, why is it mutar? I can explain nothing tam being usher because okay, so it's awful and more awful on top of awful seems to be awful.
And I'm not benefiting from the isser. Like Dafka, I think the way the Ron puts it is like, not only am I not benefiting from it,
I don't know about the
I
Ron
wish
yet.
it wasn't here.
I'm just looking at it here.
No, but
Before we
I'm
get to
saying that
the-
that language I
Yes.
think is helpful in the
Yes.
intuitive sense of why we would think this makes sense, right? That like not
Okay.
only am I benefiting from this isser, but like I wish this isser wasn't in this mixture.
Okay. All right. And which way, I'm sorry, which one are you going on? Are you going on the usr or are you going on the mutter?
The mutter.
The mutter. Let's go back to the usr for a second before you guys start throwing things. So the usr, how would we understand why it's usr? You put it, the sheretz fall, the achbar falls in. Why is the shichra usr?
Because it's an achbar. You can't eat them. Like that's, you're eating something that's asur. It's that simple.
Well, but that
Okay.
doesn't cover the question of whether or not Rav considers in general notein tam lifgam aser, right? Like that would cover the specific case of the akbar. But Rabbanan's question to Rav Sheshet is, does Rav consider notein tam lifgam aser like as a principle? And so if he considers notein tam lifgam aser in cases that are not the akbar, then perhaps it's because once just because it made your food gross doesn't mean that iser isn't iser, right? Like,
Okay,
it's still awesome.
finish. Go ahead, Isaac.
No, that was me. I'm done.
Oh, you did. Okay. Okay. So, Amrahu Rav Sheshes, Ba'alma, Sava Rav Notein Tam Lifgam is mutar. So why did he say asur? Did he change his mind? That would have been possibility. Fahacha, but here, chidushu. It's for a whole different reason. It's for a learning reason. It's a chiddush. Daha mima'es ma'es, because this achbar is something which is disgusting. Ubedili inish minei, and people impulsively, instinctively, automatically just remove themselves from it. So if that's the case,
Why do you need to make it asur?
He hasn't given us the chiddush yet. What?
So if that's the case, why do you need to make it asur? People are going to distance themselves from it anyway. It's repulsive.
Exactly. Nonetheless, asrei rachmana, the Torah forbids it. So the assumption here is the Torah doesn't need to forbid anything which Torah doesn't have to mandate gravity.
Or that that's
It
or
doesn't
that the
have
Torah
to
forbid,
forbid gravity. You know what it is, it is. You know.
or that the Torah
so why do you have
or
it?
that the Torah forbids it for another reason.
Yeah, that they don't say.
Mhm. Well,
if they came up with it, I'm just saying it doesn't become part of the conversation. I don't think.
Well, it doesn't in the Hemshech. It does. When they say with the psukim they bring from Vayikra, it's making it clear that in this case we're talking about a dead sheretz as opposed to a live sheretz.
Sheretz doesn't know how to swim.
So it doesn't take long for it to be dead.
Yeah. Hilkach note tam lifgam nami asur. Okay, Asher, translate the last four words then. Hilkach note tam lifgam nami asur.
So therefore, if it's
No, the hilkach note tam lifgam nami asur.
okay, so in that case, even though it's notein tam lifgam, it's still asur. Even though normally, under normal circumstances, notein tam lifgam would be mutar, but in this case, this is something different. This is not a normal case. This is an exception to the rule,
And
it's an exception that makes a new rule.
Some people translate chiddush as anomaly. I saw that in the Sansino. At somebody's house, I saw the Sansino anomaly. different kind of case. Chiddush, I think, is Chiddush kind of here works better. What's the Chiddush here?
The chiddush is that when it's dafka and achbar, I don't know if it's just an achbar or any sheretz. So, but in this case, as far as we know right now, when it's an achbar, then even it's not in tam lifgam, it's still going to be asur.
It's still going to be asur even though people aren't eating it.
Well, that's yeah.
No notein tam lifgam here is that not only is it asur, what's asur? Not only is the achbar asur,
but so's the beer.
but the beer is also asur.
Right.
Right. The beer is asur. In other words, we learned something new from it.
It's not a matter of just
The
taking the
Chiddush goes
achbar
like
out.
this.
We've had other cases that which seems
A Chiddush can't be useless, right? A Chiddush can't be useless. A Chiddush tells us something new. So actually, we're covered on the achbar side because people, meuse, if you do the principle of meuse, people don't eat this stuff, therefore there's no need. But there's a Chiddush. The Chiddush is that it's also pogame, it's also oser. And that becomes so therefore what Rav's teaching us is that it's not the achbar that we have to worry about. The achbar we know already, but it's that new reading, the chiddush reading, which seems on the surface is an extra. We don't need that pasuk. So what's the pasuk for? The pasuk's for is to make the shifra totally awesome. Okay, Yavni, would you go with this? No. Yes. What? Not sure.
Can you hear me? I'm having trouble with my sound setup.
Okay, Josh, would you go with this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm influenced by Rashi though.
Excuse me?
I'm influenced by Rashi at the moment.
Okay. Which Rashi?
Chidush Daha Isur Sheret Chidushu.
Okay, so read it and tell me.
No, he's just saying that the new principle that's been brought in is that Achbar stands in for all Shratzim, and that's the issue. It's not a Noten Tam Nifgam issue. There's a special rule about Shratzim.
Okay, so this is really the next piece of Gemara, right? Correct or not?
I don't know. I don't know if they get back to the idea of Shratzim as a category.
So it's telling us that so wait, what's it telling us? Tell me again.
Saying the reason Rav gave his ruling is he has a special category for Shratzim, and Shratzim don't follow the same rules of Noten Tam Nifgam, Noten Tam Neshevach. Even though it's Noten Tam Nifgam, it's special. This is the Chidush. Maybe not.
I actually don't get it. Anybody want to, it's fine. Anybody want to help explain Josh to me? It could be you too, Josh, but could somebody else explain Josh to me? Asher? Anybody?
well. The Rashi says that the chidush is the sur on the sheretz. It's not that that the beer is asur, but that we're learning something that the sheretz does not fall into the same category as everything else we've learned about noten tam lifgam.
Is that what you're saying, Josh?
Yeah.
And Joel, what do you have to
exception.
say? You have a correction? What?
I just wanted to take it one step further, and I'm somewhat basing this on the Tosfot, but I think the idea here is that, at least the way I understand it, is that you normally would say, well, you don't need an asara against a sheretz. No one's going to eat a sheretz, right? Like, what's going on there? Because itself is pagum. Like, these are disgusting things. Like the meuse and pagum, I think, are similar categories here. And yet, nonetheless, the Torah still had to go out of its way to say this is asur, which makes you realize that this is a whole category of things, the shratzim, that are asur no matter what their taste is, whether good or bad, right? That their isur is independent of whether or not there's hana'ah from eating them.
Okay. Any comments on this? Okay, we chopped this up enough. We'll see which way it comes in the Rishonim. Skip down to Matkif, okay, which is the last of the narrow lines. Matkif lo Rav Shimi Minarda. I don't know who he is. Didn't have time. Anybody know who Rav Shimi Minarda is? I was just kind of curious because we got through up to the third generation. Umi Mois, and is a achbar Mois. B'hala olel shulchan shel malachim. Right, they're serving it right now in the finest restaurants, in Buckingham Palace or whatever. Amar Rav Shimi Minarda. He answers his own question. Maybe a girsa problem here, but whatever. Lo kashya ha b'davra ha b'damata. He says, well, basically, all we're really talking about here is not, yes, that's the case of the desert rat, but we're talking basically about a city rat. And he narrows our conversation, and the city rat, the mata, is meuse, and that's it. You could have a rat. So it's not really, in that part, the desert rat now falls out, is not part of the conversation anymore. It's halachically important because if you have a situation in which a desert rat falls into the beer, what will be the psak?
Mutar.
It'll be mutar. It would seem, huh? It would be mutar. Why would it be mutar?
Because it's not meuse anymore.
It's not meuse anymore. Can you say something, that's not can you say it in a positive way? As opposed to saying not meuse. If you're setting up two people on a date, if you say about either one of them that they're not meuse, doesn't sound so great. Can you say it now in a positive way?
This rat is a better rat.
Even more, it's delicious.
I mean, it still has to be
it's a
noten tam
delicacy.
lifgam. We're assuming that it's noten tam lifgam, but to the beer. That's why it would be mutar, because it's noten tam lifgam to the beer, but it's a great dish on its own. The country mouse, the desert mouse, the field mouse.
The desert mouse is a great dish. So it has no halachic impact in this conversation. Right?
Well,
That's what you're saying. It doesn't have a halachic impact.
I have a question. Does the Chiddush fall away because now don't we need a pasuk to tell us not to eat this, not to eat, and therefore maybe the Torah just said don't eat shratzim because some of them are tasty. It wasn't, and therefore it's not a Chiddush anymore. There's no Chiddush at all.
So you're asking me a different question. You're asking me a good Yoredea question. I'm still sticking on the impact here. Yeah, I think it's a problem. No, nonetheless, your question is a problem. It's a problem with the original idea that it's a chiddush. Your question is on the chiddush sense, right?
Yes.
The chiddush falls away. Yeah, I agree with you. So it's a good shaila on the chiddush part. But I'm going to leave that alone. I just want to ask the question in terms of does it affect the beer? Yavdi says, Yavdi, what did you say? Does it affect
I
the
say
beer?
that if it's noten, it becomes like any other thing. If it's noten tam lifgam, then it's mutar, and if it's yeah, and that's the
It's
idea.
not taking time with gam because it's. So what's the difference between it and so what's the difference between these two rats?
The city rat is inherently bad tasting, and therefore it doesn't make sense. And therefore the argument goes that it doesn't make sense to say that it's that if it's noten tam nifgam, then it's mutar, because it's always noten tam nifgam. It's a disgusting thing, and therefore we don't want to allow it for being disgusting because it was forbidden as a disgusting thing, not as a thing that is. Whereas the country mouse is like nevela, in that it is tasty on its own, and therefore if it is noten tam, then therefore it is forbidden as something tasty, and if it is noten tam nifgam, then we can say it's mutar, because you're not getting the pleasure out of it that you would be if you were eating it with the game.
Mutar, the shifra is mutar, or what happened to the beer?
The taste of the what? If the beer got the taste of the country mouse, and it is notenta, and it makes it taste less good, then it is mutar. If it got the taste of the mouse and of the country mouse, of the desert mouse, and it made it taste better, then it's asur.
Any response to Yavni? It could very well be that that the response here was just talking about Olel Shulchan Malachim, not wanting that whole conversation to enter here, to enter the impact on the shechra. The impact on the shechra we're interested in is really the impact of what that rat can do to the beer. No, excuse me. It's is the impact of something that is meuse. Since the desert rat, since as opposed to country, I know that probably was a book you read as a child with the city rat, the city mouse, and the country mouse. Okay, but since yeah, I understand the chulin, but here they're trying to say is don't bring this in. This is a different type of creature, and we're not interested in that creature, and therefore it has no relevance to our conversation of an achbar falling in. The achbar that we're falling in is an achbar that is meuse. There's a problem from the Gemara Chulin, but here the achbar that is meuse, and therefore when the achbar is not meuse, it's not part of the conversation. Period. I think that's what it's here. So this is the end of our second conversation, which was basically Rav Shimi to himself, and basically Rav Shimi says to himself is I am getting rid of the discussion of, you might think that it might refer to the desert rat. It doesn't refer to the desert rat at all. That's just a different thing. But we are talking about Davro, which has a meuse problem, and the general chiddush is still there in one form or another, however you want to say it. And the chiddush is, it's not just the rat we're talking about, because people don't eat these kind of rats. It is the impact of the meuse-kindness of a mouse, the meuse mouse. Okay. My wife asked me, she said, how come you didn't put in your titles there, ratatouille, as opposed to cuisine, but okay. I said another time I'll put ratatouille, but that's it. That's actually the chiddush of the movie Ratatouille. The chiddush, any of you guys see Ratatouille, the movie? Okay. The chiddush of the movie Ratatouille is that rats can be tasty, but they're not tasty. They're aesthetically terrible. It's one joke. It's a one joke film.
I thought, here's the title for your next time. Who put a
Nobody will
Mickey?
tell this.
Who
Okay,
put,
now I
wait,
move a little faster.
joke.
The
Who
third,
put,
oh, you got the title? What?
who put a Mickey in my beer?
Okay, fine. That's good. Amar Rava. Now I'm going to the third conversation. Now we go to Rava. Rava is when? He is from the fourth generation on the Steinsaltz chart, or in the fifth generation. Oh, you have it at what generation, Josh? 320 to 390 or 350. What did I write down? 320 to 350. Rava, fourth generation. These are all Babylonians. Amora. Amar Rava. Hilchata notein tam lifgam mutar. Notein tam lifgam is mutar. No, don't give me this other thing. Notein tam lifgam is asur. Notein tam lifgam is mutar. And Andre, why is it mutar? Notein tam lifgam.
Because it's for the detriment of the pagum object.
Okay, anybody want to say it differently, or is that okay? Note tam lifgam is mutar, ba'achbar b'shicha lo yadana mai tam adarav. But the achbara, which I'm assuming now is of a city rat, and the shifra, we don't know what's the reason why it produces this effect. My time, why Rob says that it's what? That it's asur.
We don't know why Rav says it's a sur.
Asur, excuse me. Why Rob says it's asur. Thank you. E mishum the kosaber note tam lifgam asur. Maybe he really holds that way. That's why I try to struggle to find a reason. That it really is something which is asur and it's on top of something which is asur. Just make it, no, well, it's not on top of something. It's asur, so maybe it makes something asur. The let hilchata kavatei, but halacha doesn't go like Rav. Now Rav's a major figure. He's canceling out Rav. But you can't try to cancel out Rav so simply. E mishum, or maybe the other possibility, the kosaber, notein tam lifgam mutar, that actually it should be mutar. Okay? Because the achbara is notein tam l'shevach. It makes it good. You may think it's disgusting, it doesn't matter. It's notein tam l'shevach. And therefore, once it's notein tam l'shevach, what tam is it mashpiach in one word? A tam that is one word. A tam that is notein tam l'shevach, the achbar b'shichra, ashbuche mishabech, is mishabech what?
The beer.
Shicha.
So let's say it's mishabech the beer. Once it's mishabech, so help me out. Once it's mishabech the beer, then what happens, Lexi?
Then the beer is usser, because according to everybody, then like regardless, everyone agrees that when an usser thing gives tam l'shevach, that the thing itself is now usser.
I want to know why though. I want to know just why that
Because
happens.
like I can both recognize and enjoy / benefit from the presence of the isser in this thing.
Do you want me to
be giving it like as a svara or the term? I mean, you can say like tam ki'ikar would essentially be like the principle that's at work here, but like svara wise, it's like, I recognize the presence of the isser, even if I throw the achbara out. Like I now have mousy tasting beer, which apparently is maybe delicious. And I'm like, wow, so great. I won't be so careful about keeping mice away from my beer in future.
Okay. Any other comments on this? But I needed so I could understand it simply. Ashpuche mishabech is Ashpuche mishabech. Finish the sentence. Is there a sentence? Is this Ashpuche mishabech? Is that an end of a sentence, or does the sentence continue actually, and you have to put in more words? In other words, Ashpuche mishabech. If you put
Add the
in a
word
couple
to
more words,
add,
what are the,
add
what are
the
the
word
next words?
add the
Huh?
word ta'amo. Ta'amo. Ta'amo shel
Ashpuche
shechar.
mishabech, the time of the
Of
what?
the shechar.
And
Of the shechar.
mo is of it. What's the it?
Shechar.
Of the shechar.
It could be the tarovet of the shechar and the mouse too, right? That's
It's the tarovet, I think. That's the problem, is the tarovet. Right? Bachra b'shichra, which is a tarovet, ashpuche mishabech, has gotten stronger. So the Isur has gotten stronger. The Isur has gotten wonderful. The Isur is not overwhelmed. The Isur is enhanced. The Isur is enhanced, no stopping the Isur. This thing is really Usur. So that's the, who tells us that, Shita? This is Rava, right? This is Rava, 4th generation, okay? 320, 350, I'm sorry, because I just saw the names, the personages continue a conversation down the line. Starts with Rav, who is early, and then it continues. I don't know about Rav Shimi. And here at this point, Achra b'shichra, ashpuchim b'shabech. So I think that's what we're worried about. What we're worried about is our question, our concern, or our criterion is the Isur overwhelmed, or is the Isur enhanced? Or is it, I said Tarovet before, is the impact of the Isur overwhelmed and doesn't have, or is the impact of the Isur enhanced, and therefore you have a really bad case of the Tarovet? That's how I think it is. So that's our third conversation. 1, 2, 3 conversation. Iboyalahu. Noam, you didn't miss much. We went from word to word.
Oh, I'm glad. Sorry, I couldn't figure out the internet. Continue.
No, okay, fine. No, I was just being a pathetic teacher. I'm sorry. Iboyalahu. Now, nafal legav chala. It fell into a lego. Excuse me. Nafal lego chala. It fell into not starch. It fell into vinegar. Okay. It fell into vinegar. Can we do a parallel case? And if we do a parallel case, what are we going to learn from this? My. Amarle Rav Hillel or Rav Ashi. Now we're zooming ahead. What generation is Rav Ashi?
The last one? I don't
Well,
remember.
the last one, except there's
The
always,
last one.
except there's always the post last and the
He's
post
5.
last.
Well,
But
he
yes, Rav Ashi is good.
he redacted the Gemara, no?
Yeah, but then he got redacted. Maybe.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying. So Rav Ashi, yeah. So we're moving ahead. We started with Rav. This is an Amoraic conversation. They're still trying to get it. So Rav Hillel, who I think was from around then, says to Rav Ashi, says to Rav Ashi, 6th generation, 375 to 425. He says, Rav Ashi, Hava Uvda Be Rav Kahana. we had the same case, the case of falling into the achbar, falling into the vinegar. We had that with Rav Kahana, V'asar Basar Rav Kahana. And Rav Kahana made it asr. First of all, okay, one of the questions I have in mind, there's a lot of Rav Kahanas. There's a second generation Rav Kahana, third generation, fourth, maybe not a fifth, and there's a sixth generation Rav Kahana. Just pointing out. The big Rav Kahana, who's the big kahuna, as it were, is the second generation Rav Kahana. But the fact that, so therefore Rav Kahana has, and this is a word I've learned more recently, covering certain legal things, Rav Kahana has standing. He's got standing. Major guy. You can play the whole thing that he's sixth generation and he's up against Rav Ashi. No, I think it's second generation. I'm going to play it that way. He's in second generation. And he said, and he is answered what is he answered? Well, also Rav Kahana. Well, it can't refer to the rat because the rat's already usher. It must refer to the challah. It must refer to the vinegar. If now the vinegar is usher, what does that tell us?
That the discussion of is not specific to beer?
Well, it seems to be a parallel case. In other words, if we say it's a parallel case, and in that case, I think it's not close enough. It doesn't give enough information. But I would try to make the case that the challah is parallel to the other strong item, which is shikur, which is alcohol. So that both, and that he says, look, he says, I don't know, I have to tell you, Rav Ashi, you are now redacting the Gemara until you get redacted yourself, but you're redacting it. So let's have, this conclusion that you may be headed to, that we said earlier, that came from Rava, right? Which would end up saying that the issue that the rat going into the shechar is actually mutter. I don't know. I got a case of vinegar, and it's also very strong. And we have a Rav Kahana who's around the time of Rav, and he says, you know what? It's usher. And therefore, the whole thing that you had earlier about Dotei Tam Lifgam being mutter, I'm not so sure. Is this a possible reading of this Gemara? Nachum, what do you think?
Well, you stopped before the last two words.
I didn't give the answer. I didn't give the answer. No, I didn't give the answer. But the answer I think would work. Amar le, ahu, imratute, imratat. So the answer to Hillel from Rav Ashi is, this is not relevant. Actually, if it was the normal case that it fell in and the rat fell in, it would follow the same halacha that we have about shechar. It would follow the same halacha. This case happened to be different. Vinegar is very strong and it fragments, it attacks the body, it fragments the body. And this is a case in which the rat, imratuti, ratatouille, that's going to be the title in a couple of years from now, if I ever teach this shir again. Imratuti, ratatouille, that will be two words which we'll talk about the whole thing. I'm a happy man, okay? These days in Corona, it doesn't take me much to get happy, okay? Imratuti, no, it fell apart. And so what we're really talking about is that it might very well be usher, because what do you still have? You still have fragments. There'll be a whole question about how much fragments, but you still have fragments. And there, you have fragments, excuse me, you have fragments. And you have fragments in the shechar, and that's why it's usher. However, if it's just a meuse mouse going into it, it won't have that impact. It'll be mutter. So I take this Gemara as a challenge, Makif. It's a challenge to the psak of heter, but it's thrown away. But it gives us another interesting case. In the case of a chopped up, it's not chopped up that someone chopped it up. It fell apart. It was in vinegar long enough, it fell apart, and it's inside the mashka. In that case, fine. We'll say it's usher, we'll go like Rav Kahana. But that gives us more information for psak halacha. Does it give us more information for psak halacha on what issue? Is it on the issue of the nature of the isur, that the isur is a solid whole, like the squirrel, as Rashi says, the page before, the squirrel that falls into the beer, or is it a case of that we're talking about chopped up because it has fallen apart? That it could be on that, or is it a question on the difference between vinegar and shechar? What this all does to us is gives us extra chilukim. Is there a chiluk between vinegar and shechar, or is the major chiluk between a solid whole and something which has now a smoothie, the squirrel smoothie? That becomes the distinction. Ravina, okay? When was Ravina, by the way? Alongside Rav Ashi,
Also at the end.
6th generation. Ravina Savar Ushure B'Meya, which one? The very potent squirrel smoothie? V'chad Omar, somebody else said, Lo Gora Me Truma, did not, or someone added on, Truma Ola B'Echad B'Meya, Amrle Rav Tachlifa, Bar Gizel Ravina, Dilma Katavlin Shel Truma, B'Kedera Dami, Delo Batil Ta'amayu, maybe that's the reason, I don't go into that. Rav Achai Shir B'Chala B'Chamishin, Rav Shmuel B'Rei, the Rav Ika Shir B'Shichra B'Shitin. We don't know which one's more powerful. We don't know which one is whether the shifra, going to the question about the liquid, whether it's the shifra or the what do you call it, or the whatchamacallit, the shifra or the other guy. The vinegar is more powerful. Ravika shir b'shifra b'shitin. The hilchata Aidi v'aidi b'shitin, v'chen kol yisurim shebatorah. What is this final psak? Let's just talk about it for a moment. What is this final psak?
Whether it's shechar or vinegar, it's batel b'shishin.
Yeah, but where did that come from? In other words, what produced, that's what I'm actually asking, what produced this response? Josh, you got a comic book inside of that, Gemara? No, I guess not. Okay.
It seems to me that the issue, after all the chilukim, the issue that they're looking at is notein tam, and notein tam bilvad.
Okay, maybe. Any response to that? That's interesting. Any response to that? Well, one thing I do want to say, as I ponder what Asher said, so it's not against what you said right now, it's just another thing. They're coming to a public policy. They've had, one way for me to say this is they've had a conversation through 6th generation. The Hilchasa may be the 7th generation or 8th generation, right? The post redactor, right? Giving the halacha. And he tells us, I'm just going to reconcile these two. I can't find the chiluk, whether whole or whether fragmented, whether what's more corrosive, the shechar or the vinegar or the chometz. In fact, this particular Isur, you know what? All the Isurim of the Torah are by Shishim, are overwhelmed by Shishim. Let's just apply that here. And that becomes the halacha. Even though, in fact, there may be distinctions between the two. Maybe some just need 50, they don't need 60. Maybe some really need 100. What do you do with that? Showing how strong it is? Okay, but now, Chol Yisurim Shabbatorah are by 60. And that's how they end it. I say that this is like a meeting. They had one committee after another committee going through all these generations. Finally, they can't take it anymore. Let's come to a psak, let's vote on it. Okay, standard policy. It's not even a vote, it's a policy decision. You know what? It's the regular policy. That's what we say with Kol Yisurim. That's how I read what's going on here. But nonetheless, the various chilukim are still alive with the Rishonim and with the poskim. So what we're going to do is, any feedback, any comeback on this?
Well, I'd like to emphasize what you're saying just before we go to a break, and that is, this is Nachum. You hear me?
Yeah, that what?
No,
You're
emphasize
yes.
what you're saying, which is that up till now, like Lexi said before, we were assuming that whether the mouse was a dabra or mata, it for sure it gave a bad flavor to the beer, and therefore the beer would be mutter. And now we seem to be saying quite the opposite, that mice give a good flavor to beer, and therefore we need 60 to nullify it, and noten tam lefgam becomes irrelevant. We've gone full circle, and we've retracted everything we said before, and we don't. And like you said, where is this coming from? There's no basis for it.
Okay, so therefore part of our notion will be in 5 minutes. We'll try to see whether or not what I said, better explained by Rav Nachum, is accepted by the Rishonim. What I think, by the way, is Rishonim go back and try to rework these various distinctions. And then we'll have to at least look at one or two poskim very quickly, because we only got the time, just to see how they'll take from the Rishonim or they'll take from the Gemara, and whether or not they will allow for distinctions, or whether or not they're headed also for public policy. So okay, 5 minutes, which is less than 5 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay, see you back. As far as I see the Rif seems to review the Gemara, but I think what's important with the Rif is that by reviewing the Gemara, he has left all the halachic chilukim in. I think I've gone over it a couple of times. I may be wrong. If we had a lot of time, we take a look. But it's in other words, he does it out. But I think one thing he doesn't have. Does he have the Rif? You have the Rif's page. Does he have the chiluk between desert and city?
Which page in the Rif is it?
Does he?
No.
He doesn't have. So that's actually important. Let's just take it this way. He has all the other chilukim, I think. He doesn't have the chiluk between desert and that. Joel quoted gave us the Gemara from Chulin that Achbar means Achbar.
It wasn't me, but it was, I don't remember who said it.
It was somebody else, some other dirty rat. Who was it? Akbar. Oh, that's okay.
It was Josh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so by getting rid of that, as I just said, so therefore all achbarim are probably considered in the same, or that the fact that the desert rabbit was ola al shulchan is just like it's a different category, but they get rid of it. Doesn't become a distinguishing chiluk here. Good, that's the riff. Now let's go from the riff. I'm going to come back into the round later. Let's go because the riff, right? Let's go 100 years later. Then the riff is the Rambam. So the Rambam Achalot Atzurot Perek Tet Vav Lamed Aleph. And I think basically this is his summation. Or not, this is how he does the halacha. Okay, so Lexi, read, if you have the Rambam in front of you, read halacha Lamed Aleph.
Okay, Akbar shnafal l'shecher u'lechometz misha'avav oto b'shishim she'anu chosheshin shema ta'amo b'sher b'chometz mashbiach. Aval im nafal leyain u'leshemen u'ledvash mutar v'afilu natantam mifnei sheta'amo pogem shekol elu tzrichin liotan musamin v'zeh masrichan masid ta'aman. So the Rambam decides to read this again in a certain way. So first of all, he gives us something that's a little closer to just what we got, which is that when this achbar falls into beer or also vinegar, we say because we, in that second part of the sugya, weren't sure whether Rav's shita was because of his opinion on noten tam nifgam being different than most, or because he thinks it's l'shevach. We're choshesh that actually these are l'shevach and these things, and so we say it's asur. But that's dafka in shecher and chometz. But things like wine and oil and honey, which have these kinds of more delicate flavors, we feel confident that the mouse is definitely lifgam in those cases, and so it's mutar.
Okay, good. What does he leave out? This is very good. Thank you. Now let's think. What does he leave out? He leaves out desert and okay, that he leaves desert. Distinction there between desert and city. What else does he leave out?
He also leaves out the whole question of meuse.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is also a question that we'll build on, but there's the question of is the second response about the achbar replacing the Rav Sheshet answer, or is it additional? And I think a lot of there shouldn't read it as replacing. So I think that could be a way of explaining the Rambam of he's yeah, I'm not bringing in the Dvar Meuse thing here because I don't think we hold Rav Sheshet's explanation. I think we go by the second explanation that was given.
So I want to point out here is that our interest in the halachic shir will be the halachic impact, not, even though it's all about Rav's statement. I've emphasized that it will be on the impact. Okay, good. Thank you for all that. Now, is there anything else that he does? What does he put in that we might not have had before? Or I didn't at least know it before, but you can tell me if we had it. Two words that he puts in. Chosheshin Shema. And this I think is that correct? Did we have it before? Chosheshin Shema.
Yeah, we did.
Where did we have it?
We had by Rav. You said we don't know why Rav forbid it.
No, did he use those words?
We don't
those
have those
exact words, but we had a doubt. We had a doubt.
I feel like it's
right. No, it's a doubt of two ways of going. But here he's putting this way of going as being the reason. The reason is Chosheshin Shema. In other words, it gives strength. This, by the way, gives strength to halachic fears. As opposed, the Rambam, Dr. Rambam says, I don't know if it happens all the time. I don't know if it happens, what percentage of the time it has, Dr. Rambam, Dr. Maimonides, excuse me. Dr. Maimonides says, but you know what? Choshishin Shema is serious enough to be a reason of saying that it's usher.
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing he brings is the idea that like maybe is intuitive to us, but the idea that shecher and chometz are the exception rather than the paradigm, right? That like we talk about like the shechera and the sugya, and like it doesn't make it explicit within the sugya whether this is just being used as an example, but should be applied to like
should be the pair, right. Good. Maybe shechera that is. So he brings in, and he tells us dafka of shemen devash. I'm sorry, yain shemen and devash. But he tells us something special about them, right? That they need to be enhanced.
They have like a more like
they
delicate
have to be enhanced. They have to be, they're delicate, as you said. They have to be on a high level. This has impact on something else which has not been brought up, but now is the place to bring it up. Implied or not implied, shar mashkim. Right, shar mashkim. I'm having a Schweppes ananas toot. I don't know. Somehow it's red. It seems to me that one of those two flavors should go. But my point is that is it enhanced or not enhanced? And that becomes shar mashkim, or is that just totally outside? So therefore, what's inside? You say shichra and chometz. Those are major staples that have strong taste. Rambam gives us the opposite. I mean, the polar opposite, the delicate ones, which are easily pagumed, are easily taken apart. The shar mashkim he doesn't talk about. You can argue one way or the other about that, but at least for the Rambam, it's really just not on the page. I would.
Rav Landes?
Yeah.
The whole thing kind of strikes me as an interesting read of the sugya in that when we try to break down Rav's opinion, which was seemingly not even like the majority opinion, there was one of three solutions to Rav was that he thought it was noten tam lishvach, right? That, but somehow that becomes enough of a concern for us that the Rambam means the end of the Gemara there when it says Hilchatar. I think it's Rav Shmuel Berei de Rav Ika, right? Even though almost everybody so up until this point in time has agreed that Rav is a sui generis opinion, we're nonetheless we're gonna actually be concerned about that.
Okay, I accept your comments. Let's see if it comes up. Look at the Lechem Mishnah, the end of the Lechem Mishnah. You guys have the Lechem Mishnah there? Okay. It's 2 lines. Those are great 2 lines. Let me give a gift to someone of 2 lines. Noam, here's a gift. Abal im nafal.
Abal im nafal lo yain o l'shemer v'chulei. The Gemara lo huskar isur ela b'shikra v'chala v'lakach katab rabbeinu d'mishar mashkin share. So he says that the Gemara does not mention the prohibition; it only mentions the prohibition with shikra and chala. Therefore, the Rambam permits shar mashkin. Of course, the Rambam doesn't actually permit shar mashkin. He permits Dvash, Dvash, Yayin, and
He has a
Shemen.
whole question of why Dvash is not there. Okay, but what's the point? What's the point?
Well, the point is that we're already coming at this from a perspective of Choshishin. And I think we only need to be Choshesh for things that the Gemara explicitly mentions. For other mashkin, I think the sense is that we don't have to be so concerned about them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Shar Mashkim, so our Psak Halacha now is so Noam, give me the Psak Halacha for the three categories.
Well, it's only two. I think it's only two categories for the Rambam.
I know, but humor me.
Okay, so for Shichra and Chala, it's sort of the normal rules. You need Shishim to nullify the flavor. For Devash, Yayin, and Shemen, it's considered Noten Tam Lifgam, and the same thing would apply for
because before you say same thing, because
the Akhbar gives a negative detrimental flavor to
fluids that are
to fluids that are not the question is if you want to distinguish between Shar Mashkin and those three. If you want to just say it's those three, then they give a negative flavor to fluids that are more delicate. If you want to say, but if you want to say Shar Mashkin, you want to say it gives negative flavor to fluids that are not Chala and Shichra because they are extra.
So that's the problem in combining. The problem in combining is you just drop from the Rambam the delicate flavor issue.
Right, but the Lechem Mishnah does drop that.
You're in good company, but you're both wrong. I think.
Noted.
No, seriously, I thought about this a lot. This two lines drive me crazy. But of course, this is what happens when you only have two criteria. Then you figure the third criteria has to go somewhere. You go somewhere else, but not everyone agrees with the Lechem Mishnah. Okay, that's good. Now let's go to the Ran. Okay. The Ran is, of course, with the Rif, Rabbeinu Nisim, and Ahu Achbara. Oh, how am I going to do this? It's not so bad. Okay, Noam, you were reading, so read from Ahu Achbara. You guys have it? You have the Ran? Get the Ran. Rabbeinu Nisim, get it. It's on the same page as the Ref, towards the bottom, right? Ahu Achbara.
All right. Ahu Achbara denafil chavita deshechra v'chulei v'ha chidushu deha mimayas ma'is udule inshe mine. Piresh Rashi Zal v'kevan sheken what was this?
The kevan lama li das.
Lama li das. Rahma v'hainu chadushe v'eina. Okay, chadushe nire. So Rashi explains this phrase as since people are already separate themselves from eating shratzim, why does the Torah need to forbid us from eating them? Therefore, it's a chidush, which means that it's noten tam lifgam asor. Ve'eno nireh denehi demais uvdile inshe minei afal pikan hutrach lasoroto belav. So the Ran says, I don't like this because so what if it's gross for people and people separate themselves them? Nevertheless, the Torah still needed to forbid them with a negative prohibition because then there's a malkut issue at play.
Right. So Ran is very tough, very strong, and just boots it out. But what's he going to replace it with? The ode, excuse me.
The ode shel derarav ein chidush zeh kechidush hamuzkar be'kama mekomot beTalmud dechidush be'alma hainu isor miklal heter o heter miklal isor. So, secondly, the way that Rav explains chidushu here is not the way chidush operates in anywhere else in the Talmud, where a chidush is generally meant to be when something becomes prohibited when it is generally when all the other rules say would be permitted, or when something is permitted when the general rule would tell you that it's prohibited.
Okay, he's getting to something good. Keep on going.
Ella hachi perusha kevan demayis meis uvdile inche havale knevela serucha mikara deshare lekula alma kidiita begamara. Vafilu hachi asrei rachmana. Hilka kevan chidsha bo Torah isur af tamo oser af al pishu pogem. So he explains what he actually thinks is going on, that even though it's really gross and people separate themselves from it, it is like a like a very gross, like a putrid nevela from the beginning, which is already permitted to everyone, as we learned in the Gemara, which I think we did last week. And even so, despite the fact that in this state it's permitted to everyone, the Torah forbade it. Therefore, since the Torah innovated something with regard to it that is prohibited anyway, so too we say that its tam also forbids, even though it's pogem.
So it's not, so therefore the Isur on the tam is not a replacement for the Isur on the goof, because people don't, we say people don't eat it anyway. Well, we don't need it. We need, no, there's an Isur on the goof, but it's an extension of the Isur on the goof. It's like a super Isur that extends over. That's the only way I can explain the Ran. It's a super Isur that says not only is the goof officer, even though it's putrid, but since they went so far and they're so makpid and they hate that goof so much that they're going to say that it has to be usher mi dioraita, we will extend the Isur dioraita to even to the Isur of the tam. That's the Ran. Ran's always interesting. Okay, good. Now let's go to the next part. No, I'm going to skip that. It's good, but I'm going to skip it. Ahu imratu imrate perish Rashi zal. The sheretz isuro kadasha. Right? We didn't really do the Rashi inside. The real problem is that it's like a little. It's the name of those things that I eat all day. My wife's a vegetarian.
Lentils.
It can be meuse sometimes, let me just tell you. But okay, lentils. But a lentil, it could be also, that's a chayshinin, dilma bala, chatichat sheretz bahade chometz, where if the Isur is so small that we continue it for it to be usher, because we're afraid that there would actually be something be'en, and it's really be'en, it really exists, because the Isur is only, the Isur of the Tuma is only even just the size of a lentil. The 8 shratzim that are considered the real shratzim, for Torah, that they were distinguished in the Torah, she'isuran ketumatan, and the Isur of eating it, of consuming it, is the same amount. Therefore, it's an adashaf. Aval tema, the tema hoop. It's an astonishment. Lama hutzrach lakach. Tahar, where we need that. Tahar af b'shari surim yesh lachush v'pachos mikazayas. Tahar kaimon Rabbi Yochanan Omer Rabbi Perik Basri Yoma. The chatzi shiur aser. What's that next word? The chatzi shiur asur. Can't read that word.
Mean.
Oh, mean. Okay. The chatzi shiur. Should be a comma there or a semicolon. That we already have this kind of halacha of a shear being kazayas, and even a chatzi kazayas. And the chatzi kazayas would seem to be even less than a kazayas, less than a chatzi kazayas. Is still also, you don't get malkos. Therefore, mean samaro, the semer becomes the problem. Semer is the fuzz. The cave and the rat's fuzz.
Rob, I think you skipped a line today.
Yeah, it's mina Torah.
Mina Torah.
Yeah.
Mina Torah.
Asur mina Torah.
It's an old yeshiva prank, as you know. You know that? You slice off a page of the Gemara and see if the Rebbe can go from Yud Bet to Yud Daled. It's an old thing. So I just did it to myself. Okay. I was thinking, like, why is this so? Okay. Hu Lama Hutzrach Torah. The two kashalei imishum hachi amai asrei Rav Kahana li avrei, to use a sinun b'masnenet, and he uses a sieve, v'lishtore, and to permit it. L'kach peshu ahu imrutim rate kolomar. Now I got it. Shehusar samaro, that the fuzz came off. The cave of the chazin shah the shaha tuva ikol mechash dilma churpe dechala mahadar le latama l'shevach v'afagav dechala v'shik. Okay, fine. So basically, without going into the whole thing, the alternate kind of reading can be is that the fuzz, the tzemer from that, once that's taken off, once it's dissolved through the shikur, through the alcohol, or through the vinegar, there's a tremendous distaste that envelops the mix, the tarovas. V'afagad the chalav shikra tzonim b'tzoninu kaven the shaha tuva, right? Since it was there for a long time, havele kavush shehuka mevushal, and so that's the alternate way of getting to the Easter. Easter comes from the as we had talked about. The Easter comes, well, we didn't talk, it was there in the Gemara, comes from Shehiyah. The Gemara itself doesn't say Shehiyah, Rashi says Shehiyah. Comes from Shehiyah, is there a long enough time? If there a long enough time, it's dissolved, the fuzz is dissolved, terrible smell comes out, and it engulfs everything. And he brings a Ravid who does it a little bit differently. Let's now just go down 2 lines. The Kasu v'Tosot, you see that? The Kasu v'Tosot yesh l'tumo ahech anu ochlim devash devarim. We talked about that last week. Sharei raglei ha-devarim u'ravim devash. Nachum, did I hear you talk about that last week? The raglei devarim?
Yeah, yes, we talked about it last week.
The bee's knees. V'koshu be'ino, or this is a no. Vadai osur afal pi shahu pogem. V'amru b'shem Rabbeinu Tam sheraglei devarim kevin atzamot nidu shoron kednan. So not everything is osur. That's just what he's saying here at the end, and he needs to give a heter for that. The heter for the bee for the bees is that really he's saying it's only the knees, the legs that are there. The legs that are there are there's no meat, and they are and the atzamos are considered to be neutral. Then he comes to his conclusion. Hilchasa Aidi v'Aidi b'shishim. Last second, Perush bein b'shichra bein b'chala. Both of them, it's 60. The kosavar nosein tam l'shevachu. It is nosein tam l'shevach. V'ho Rabbi Seinu Tzarfatim halacha ma'aseh the dafka b'chala b'shikra be'inan shishim l'fishim b'shavachin. Dafka those two. Aval b'shemen v'yayin v'shar mashkin pogem hu. It's a pagam. Umutar. V'kach kosav Rambam. We saw that in the Rambam. Okay. The Perek Tedvav b'Hilchos Machzor Soros u'b'Gemara Amrinan v'chein l'chol yisurim she'b'Torah. Okay. So for the rush, what's the main criteria for the rush? Or what are the main criteria? What are the main criteria, plural, for the rush? Do you want to give a criterion for the rush, a chiluk for the rush that we've seen here? Or I do this too fast?
You guys about the Ran Rav or about the rush?
I mean the Ran, excuse me. I meant the Ran. Well, first of all,
He adds the consideration about how much time it spent pickling.
okay, good. So even though it's sonain, it has sonain, which render it nothing, but sonain is a problem when there's a shehiyah yom yomayim or me'eit la'eit. When it says yom yomayim, I think they mean me'eit la'eit, meaning it can cover 2 days, but it's still me'eit la'eit. Also, an amount. The amount can be as little as an adasha, so therefore it could, or therefore the whole thing could be usher because we don't know how to stop one consuming such a small amount. And such a small amount is the notion of tuma by a sheretz. Consuming a sheretz is hadasha, or maybe it's even chatzi, but it can even be as a dasha. And it seems the implication is there's no way of providing, stopping that. So therefore, the shear is unbelievable here in the Ran, of how much you have to be worried about.
And but Ravi does present at the same time, right, that you could filter it, right, if we're worried about.
So this is the repair. The repair is filtering. And what kind of filtering? Well, they're afraid that the filtering really won't get it done. That's their worry. It won't get it done unless the filter is an incredibly good filter. They used to filter through cloth. And they felt that filtering through cloth, this says begodim, but I think they just mean cloth, or maybe they mean begodim. You use your old shirt, you no longer can blouse. You can no longer wear the blouse or shirt, but it's good for the filtering process, and it will collect the adasha amount. Okay. Okay, what's the last? What does he tell us about the criterion of 60, or which liquids, according to the Ran, do we have to be worried about? Which liquids have this koach of being mashpiach? Is that what he's saying? Does he say mashpiach?
He does.
The beer and the vinegar, like in the Rambam.
Right, and he does that, right. Let's go to that line again, 3 lines from the bottom. The dafka bechala v'shichra be'inan shishim. L'fishim ba'bichon. Alo b'shem v'yayin v'shar mashkim pogem hu mutter. So therefore, the superpower of alcohol and vinegar is that it does what? What's its superpower?
It gets better with the dead sheriff in it.
Right.
That's a really nasty alcohol back.
And shar mashkim, using as no one would say for everything else, shar mashkim. What happens with shar mashkim, Noam? According to
nothing. It's just pagum. There's no increase of the process. Yeah.
And I'm sorry to do this again. Give me a full sentence. What's pogum? What's pogum?
The achbar is pogems, for good English Hebrew. The shar mashkin.
Right. And therefore, since it's pogem, the achbar is pogem, the pogem shar mashkin, and therefore, right, I can't drink this anymore.
No,
right. Okay. Fine.
You can't.
No, I can't drink it. I can't drink it. I'm sorry. It's pogem what?
It's in a can, so you can drink it.
Is that what you're telling me? We had this conversation 2 hours ago. Is pogem the isur, or is it pogem the mashka?
It's pogem the mashkin.
Say it, I couldn't hear that. Say it again.
It's pogem the mashkin. The isur is forbidden anyway. We wouldn't care if it's pagum.
Yeah.
Well, we would, but. Dafka b'chala u'shichra be'in shishim l'fishim mashbichan.
About b'shemen v'yayin v'shar mashkim, it's only two categories, as you correctly said earlier, but at least for the Ran. Po game hu. I'm sorry for keep on doing this. It's po game hu. That's a verb. What is po game what?
The Achbar is Pogam the Mashkin.
The mashkim. And what kind of mash? Okay, mashkim. Umutar. And it's mutter. Why is it mutter?
No Tentam Ifgam Mutar.
It's pogame, the isur that's in the mashkim, as it were. No.
No, the forbidden Isor. Oh, that's redundant. The Isor is makes gross the Mashkin.
Okay, very good. And even though the mashka has an isur in it, is that the reason why it's important?
Yes.
Okay, so therefore I'm going back. Yes, is the mashka, which is a tarovet of its original deal, whatever it is. It's toots and ananas, and it's pogame, the isur that came in it with the pogame itself, almost in some sense. It's pogame what it's created. Okay, fine. That is Rabbeinu Nissen. Now, on that basis, let's go to the tour. Okay. The tour. No, let's go to the rush. You'll know everything after all this, and you won't need me to show you anything. So let's go to Rabbeinu Asher. We're continuing down the generations. Rabbeinu Asher is another 100 years after the Ran. Rabbeinu Asher 1250, 1328, right? Let's go to that. Joel, I'm going to ask you, read Yud Aleph of Rabbeinu Asher.
All right, let's see if I can get through the whole Xerox copy here. Hahu achbara denafal legochavita de shichra asru rav lehu shichra amru Rabbanan kamei de Rav Sheshet lema kasavar rav noten tam lifgam asur amar lehen Rav Sheshet be'alma savar rav noten tam lifgam mutar v'hai chidushu dehai mimaes or mais uvdili in shemine v'afilu hachi asur rachmana hilchach betam lifgam name asur. That's all. We had that all in the Gemara. I don't think
we had that all right. Go on. Tema.
Tema. Dehai shichra v'chala d'lakaman sonenhen. This is what we saw in the Ran, right? Lama nesru b'nefilat achbar. V'chi im nafal zvuv b'yayin sonen asur. Is a question rather. V'chi im nafal zvuv b'yayin sonen asur. V'alo ha'id harasha. This is Haman and Megillah. Shechach nagu v'zarku v'shoteh. Right. Haman accuses the Jews that if a fly falls into their cup, that they'll throw it out and they'll drink the cup still, but not if a non-Jew touches the wine. Right. That's the
not if the king touches the wine.
Yeah, the king. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. V'yesh lomar sheshaha bo zman merubeh v'have lekamin kavush v'niflat tamo b'shechar v'chometz. So it must be
okay.
We saw that in the Ran.
And with the fly in the fly in the wine, what does he say?
It was a moment. It was for a minute. You know, it fell in. You threw it out. It was cold.
You're right. That remains the halacha. Good.
Below piresha Torah kama yamod bechometz v'shechar denechsheve kavush kemuvushal. All right. So b'shama b'shem. I can't read who it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the Ratzba. That's a Talmud, a very good Talmud of Rabbeinu Tam.
Yom shalem me'et le'et nikra kavush uvolea ufolet kemuvushal. All right, so it has to be a 24-hour period. Uraya midamar bechulin basar bechalav dechidushu.
Remember the basar chalav, that was a case in which we were trying to talk about tam ke'ikar. Can we use the paradigm the paradigm of Basar B'Cholav to tell us that with other Ishari Surim, we also have Basar B'Cholav.
And we say
But they
no, 'cause
say the problem is Basar B'Cholav is not a paradigm because it's a
chidush.
chidush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. The itar le kula yoma bechalav share
Bashal.
bashile asur. All right. So yeah, if for milk for basar chalav, it's a different case. It's a chidush. Doesn't follow the same rules. That there we're actually talking about. You have to cook them. Uma chidushu kol isrin shbatara nami dino kach. Tesonen mesonen lo mitzar velo bala ela vadai zeo chidusho dechol isrim shebatara afal pi tetsonen lo bala im sharu yom shalem nesar mitam kavush uvasar b'chalav chidushu de'eno nesar ela derech b'shol. Okay, like I was saying, for every other the shari surim, if it's a sonen interaction, if it's there for 24 hours, then you do have exchange of flavors, but you don't have basar b'chalav, which is a chidush, is not the same case. It actually has to be bishul.
Good. Amar Rava.
Amar Rava hilchata noten tanif gam mutar. All right. So ve'achbara b'shichra lo yadana my tamaderav. Imishum dekasavar noten tanif gam asur v'leit hilchata kavate. Imishum dekasavar achbara b'shichra ashbuche mashbeach. Right. So exactly what we saw in the Gemara with Rava's. I don't know which is the case. Ibayelahu nafalagu chala mai. Amar le Rav Hila le Rav Ashi hava uvda be Rav Kahana ve'asar. Amar le hahu imratute imratut. And that's really, he ends the Gemara. I think he does actually finish it, but he's going to say, he give the same thing the Ran gave here. Tema heach anu ochlim hadvash ve'lo raglei azvuv me'uruvin bo ve'hainu le imratute imratut. Right. So how do we eat honey with bees, as you said, bees' knees in it? Ve'afilu yifkom kidvash hasheretz miasur. Right. Even if it's pagum, we still have the sheretz legs in there. Ve'aya min amar Rabbeinu Tam. Afi sherbo raglei azvuv o knafayim eno chashuv kasheretz ela farba alma. Right. That's not considered part of the fly, or considered the, let's say, the asur part of the fly, the meaty part, something like that. So it's dust. Utznan atzamot hachamur mutarim, right? We have a case where even bones are permitted. So, which is okay. Rav Achisher bechala bechamshin. So we saw this, that he has an opinion that it's actually not that it's mutar, but it's 150. Rav Shmuel Brei the Rav Chia Shi'er b'shichra b'shishim. Vilchata idi v'idi b'shishim dechashinan dilma ashbuche mashbeach bechala uv'shichra. And the maskana, he says, is that we do it b'shishim because it might be mishvach, just like the Rambam said.
And he keeps the chayshin and shama. He says dilma, but he keeps that notion that we don't need absolute. You can just have our concern. So I'm skipping the tour. Go to the Shulchan Aruch for a moment. You got 7 minutes, because basically it's almost all there. Shulchan Aruch Kuf Daled. Okay, we will take turns. Asher starts the Shulchan Aruch. Din achbar shenimsa b'yayin o b'shechar. And by the way, what's the change here? They're putting in yayin first.
Yayin and shechar has nothing to do with the chametz. Unless he's giving us the two main categories to differentiate. Achbara דדרבה נותן טעם לשבח הוא שהרי עולה על שולחן מלכים, אבל achbara דמתה מספקה לן אם משביח בשחר וחומץ, או אם הוא פוגם. ולפיכך, אם נפל לשחר או לחומץ בצונן וסירו שלם, אם לא שיהיה בתוכו מעט לאט מותר.
Mate late.
Okay. So occasionally. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, so a city mouse. No, I'm sorry. A field mouse gives the time to shevach. because and we know
Have
that.
we heard that term used for the regarding the desert mouse?
Right.
When he says at the beginning here.
No, he's,
Achbar Davar Notein Tam L'Shevach.
no, he's combining things. We talked about like the
Right.
possibilities as Noten Tam L'Shevach, and the country mouse was about it not being meuse.
Good. Okay, good. So go on, Usher. Tell us more.
Okay, so because this kind of mouse does give a tam l'shevach, and we know that because it is a delicacy on the tables of kings, as opposed to the city, as opposed to the as opposed to a dead mouse, which does not.
Plus,
I'm sorry.
go on.
Okay. Hold on. I just lost my train of translation thought.
Depends how you find it, right?
Yeah, if you
I
find
mean,
it
how
right.
long it's been there. If it's me'elait, therefore it's done damage and damage to its Isur status, therefore it's mutter. But im hoya,
But
no, I'm
even
sorry.
forget.
Im lo shahad, if he wasn't there in a long time, it's mutter. But im hoya rotech, but if it was cooked up, and now bishul and kibush are considered the same thing. But im hoya rotech or fil tzonim v'shaha, shehiyah, which is kibush. Me'elait, benche sirusha, and whether or not you took it out, or whether or not it's totally it became totally fragmented within. If you can be sonen, the inyan shalosh that nothing will come out, or whether or not it's just so pulverized inside, it becomes like a mashka, but nothing is left. One form, either by sinun or by becoming liquefied. As long as you have shishin beheter, that does it for us. Keneged achbar, the time that comes because of the achbar. I'm sorry, that was we would have found that in the Torah, because the shechar chometz itself has become very thick. Hakol asur be'ein shom bishul techayshinan shema yifga b'mamasho shel yisur below yargish. In other words, he's going to swallow the adash, the amount that's his equivalent of a dash, and that's why the Ramah says the dafka b'sheres yesh lachush im nishar sham shelo yuchal otzial aval b'shar yisurim ein lachush. Okay. But there's nothing with that because you don't have such a small amount of Isur that you're confronting. But with a sheretz, it's dafka, the smallest amount, and there's no way that you can be assured that you haven't swallowed that kind of Isur. According to the Shulchan Aruch here, this halacha is really a halacha of sheretz right now. It's a halacha of sheretz. And we're very chomer on the halacha of sheretz because halacha of sheretz is even ka'adasha. But what about the other form? I'm looking at my time. Okay, Asher, pick up at bet, im nafal.
You're mused.
Sorry about that. And I read it so well, you guys all missed it.
Okay, go.
Okay, אם נפל היין שמן או לשאר המשכין פוגם ודאי ואין צריך 60 לבטל פליטתו. But if it falls into wine or into oil or to any other liquid, then it's definitely pogem, and so you don't even need the batel b'shishim.
So he does a couple of things for us here, which we just should notice, right? What does he do for us in this one line?
He sort of he answers a lot of the questions that we were wondering. What does this include? What doesn't it include? He's giving us sort of all of the all of the Binyane Av here.
Right. He makes a distinction between yain and shemen. What we don't know yet, based on him, is shar mashkin, or do we know?
Well, now we do, according to him. Yain Shem and Sharamashki, Pogim Vaday.
Okay, so now we know.
So now we know.
Okay, Haga. לפי זה.
ובלי זה, אם נפל לשומה נמי דין האחי, ויש מחמירים
Okay, and we're going to leave it there in terms of this will come up again in halacha. So let me skip now with you to Gimel. Gimel, Josh, read Gimel. Unmute yourself, Josh. Okay, good.
דברים המאוסים שנפשו של אדם קצה בהם כנמלים וזבובים ויתושים שכל אדם בודל מהם למאוסן אפילו נתערבו בתבשיל ונמחה גופן לתוכו אם ההיתר רבה עליו מותרים. ומכל מקום כל שאפשר לבדוק ולהעביר במסננת בודק ומסנן.
Okay. So what has he accomplished here in Gimel? What are
the mouse?
What are they?
The mouse became just a symbol of all disgusting things.
Right, right. So it's a larger group, right? So the Isur is a larger group than we might have thought. It's the category of all things that render you all icky, as they say in English, all icky things, all disgusting things that you recoil from them.
But he's rejected. If we go back to the Gemara for a second, he's rejected the Kiddush again. He's saying that whole svara that, well, the Torah forbid it, even though it's meuse. We're ignoring that. No. If this is disgusting and it's like a normal thing, any pagam thing is batel barov.
So, and where did he get this? He got this from where does he get it? That you can say all disgusting things are like the mouse. What do you think?
The Rashba.
Right. And what was and therefore, as was said, it's a paradigm. It's an example. It can be imitated, and it's lav dafka. Okay, so let's go now to in terms of Shulchan Aruch.
I would just say that he got it from the Gemara directly, because the Gemara's logic of the Chiddush is that any devar that is a sheretz, so he's including all sheretz. I don't know. Is an ant a sheretz? Maybe an ant's not a sheretz. Is a bug a sheretz?
Well, it's an honorific sheretz. If you take the sheretz as the 8 sheratzim that are the real sheratzim, no, because then most sheratzim are not. If you take the sheretz not defined that way of sheratzim and miyuchadim in the Torah, but as sheratzim that anything is a sheretz that causes a certain impact, then it is enough of a sheretz.
So is that case? In that case,
and that's what he's saying. And that's what he's saying.
I think the Gemara was talking about all of these things when it talked about mice. It considered it like it applied to it a din that it understood to exist regarding all shratzim. You see what I mean? So
if we go back to Rob's statement, because we have like 1 minute, Rob's statement in the Gemara. Trying to find it now. Rob's statement in the Gemara. So everyone help me out. Hahu achbara. We're learning Rav again. So what is that? That achbar? What is that achbar? What do you think at this point? We have 2 choices, right? Or is it 3 choices? No, 2 choices. Might not be the choice you were thinking. Hahu achbara. What is that? What is that, Yavni? What is that rat?
Asul. And may or may not be meuse.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So maybe it's all Achbar. Maybe. We're going way back. But we had discounted, the Gemara itself had discounted the Achbar, the Davra. Had gotten rid of that Achbar. Okay. And only make it Achbar the Mata. The Nafal Chavita the Shichra. Now we do what we do with Rav's statement of Shichra. Minimally, it's what?
Beer.
What has the Gemara done to it?
Expanded it to vinegar.
To also vinegar. Shichra v'chometz. Or anything that's like shichar, which is chometz. Right? Okay. Asrei Rav lahu shichra. Okay. As long as what's happened? When does he answer it?
As long as there is not shishim against it.
Not shishim against it. As long as there was no roteach. And as long as there wasn't shehiyah, made late.
Wait, those are the reasons why it would be asa, right?
If
Because this
it's
is like
mutter,
the
if it was
one
not
people
made late, it's mutter.
What? Right.
As long as uncooked. Okay. What's the final statement about meuse? What's the impact? Oh, maybe, let's go back. Meuse and achbara. If the defining, I'll ask the question, is the defining definition of achbar or mida of achbara is meuse, what does that do to the definition of achbara? Ha'u achbara, said by Rav, or how we now.
It's all gross things, not just an
All
achbar.
gross things, even things that aren't. So it goes up from achbar to potentially all achbar. It goes maybe or maybe not. It certainly goes up to sheretz, sheretzim and miyuchadim, the ones that have been called out. Maybe all sheretzim, and maybe things that aren't sheretzim but are really, really disgusting. Okay, any last statements? Okay, okay, what do you have, Yavni?
I have a question, but maybe I'll save it for the review session because I think it's maybe a longer question. I don't know if people want.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Yeshkach, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rav.
Thanks very much.
Yeshkach.
Koach.
Excellent. Okay, very good.
Laila tov.
Thank you. Shkoyach.
Okay, shalom, shalom.